Services that are provided to homeless people in the city of Tucson are provided by faith-based organizations. And so the problem with that is that the First Amendment to the United States Constitution is going to bar the government from being able to create a religion or to force you to deal with a religion if you don't want to.
It's kind of interesting coming at this moment because, of course, just a couple of days ago we had the town hall on poverty, which is related to this, but I think you'll find this is a different kind of event if you went to that. It's similar topic, but kind of overlapping, a different approach, let's say.
Despite all the bad things that were said about Occupy Tucson, there was a place where people could go, they could sleep, they could set up a tent, there were meals 3 times a day, there was a medic tent, there was a place where people could plug in on a computer, there were the plethora of things that a person would need to survive in that area. And in a way, I kind of agree with the city. It is not the purpose of our parks to house people. That shouldn't have to be the case, but it is. So that's where we stand. And being the co-founder of Occupy Public Land, co-founder of Safe Park, and one of the original organizers of Occupy Tucson, I was homeless for 2 years, or I've been homeless for the past 2.5 years. And I learned a lot from being in those Occupy Tucson camps. But for the 142 days that we were in the camp in the park. But what I really learned was when that 142 days was over and I had to live in washes and I had to live in tunnels and I had to live on the top of buildings, and more or less I scattered all around town to prevent from getting arrested. The main thing I learned was there's no legal place in the city of Tucson to sleep outside on public land between the hours of 10:30 p.m. and 7 a.m., as well as there's no place to go to the bathroom between 10:30 p.m. and 7 a.m. if you're a homeless person. I also learned that there's very little to almost no access to showers for a homeless person. I also learned that if you have property and you want to go on an interview, there's nowhere you can keep it. Even if you go to court, you are subjected to possibly getting everything that you possibly own stolen just so you can go to court so you don't get a warrant and go to jail and get all your property stolen. So after 2 years of getting arrested over 36 times for something related to this issue, fighting through the criminal court system, and even having to go as far as to file a civil rights lawsuit that I've been litigating for the past 2 years, we found a safe legal place for people to sleep in Safe Park.
Well, does everybody know where the park is? On Church Street, right around the corner. And some artists hired by the city came in and they used tape, like the blue tape we have here, and they very carefully measured a black line, and then they spray painted it very carefully. They did a really nice job. The line is very straight with very straight edges. It's a saturated black. If you cross that line during certain hours, you'll be arrested. If the police put out donuts and say, "Come here," at night, and you cross the line, you will be arrested. This happened. So the black line is a kind of way to isolate people socially, disempower people. It's a line that was painted by the city to express their artistic and cultural perspective.
Safe Park, and it's been giving a legal place for people without any other place to go to have a safe legal place to sleep at night. And most of our guys that stay there, within the first few days, their stress level goes down by a good 50% without having to worry about having their sleep interrupted or going to jail. And we've given out blankets during the coldest night. We've helped to get with people in the community and different groups to feed, and we've given a platform for them to express themselves.
One of those programs that we've designed for that is Safe Park, because of the way the government treats homeless people. It kind of sort of shows you a picture of what the government's going to treat people that it doesn't like, okay? And so I have two main points for the problem. The problem, of course, being homelessness. The point one is that the government cannot discriminate against people simply because they are destitute, okay? Under no circumstances can the government do that, but yet the city of Tucson's government did it in front of all of us, okay? I was on the news roasting them because they have violated the Constitution, okay? And so I'm like, but in any event, we need the government to do what it's supposed to do, okay? And these people that are out here, they're homeless, they have rights. Just because they don't have any money doesn't mean they don't have rights. Rights aren't governed by monetary considerations, okay? Everyone in this room can agree with that. What your government has done is it has made it illegal for people to do the things necessary to survive as homeless people. You can't use the bathroom outside. You can't erect a structure to protect yourself from the rain. These things are natural things that people are going to do, but the government has made them illegal. And so you've basically criminalized homelessness to where I don't say that these people are chronically homeless, I say they're criminally homeless.
My wife and I, Sister Sharif, have worked in the prison population for many, many years prior to coming here to Tucson, Arizona. I've never seen a problem with feeding millions of people across this country when it came to providing for inmates. But certainly we got a big problem providing for homeless people. Where is the logic? Where is the logic? Out here at Wilmot, in the prison, they got space for everybody, open spaces. When this convention came here to sell their little stones and whatnot, not knocking the convention, they popped up tents in a matter of minutes.
That's right. That's right.
So don't tell me we can't feed and clothe and shelter and protect and dignify people who are homeless in this city. We have the wherewithal, we have the resources, but we don't have the will to do it. You know?
What about shelters or other opportunities for getting a roof over your head?
There's about 7,600 homeless, give or take, during the season, and 400 shelter beds, and up to 2,000 during Operation Deep Freeze. So if you got 12 shelters that run off of fundraising and HUD money, and if you can walk several miles and get in there or make a phone call, there's a chance you might want to be one of the lucky 400 who get a bed. Get into a shelter because it would be easier rather than me walking 3 miles to try to get a meal 3 miles in the other direction to get a shower 2 miles over here to where I'm walking across the city all day long just to get the bare necessities to live. So by going into shelter, I thought, here's a place where it has everything and they could help me get a job. But when it came to getting a job, there was restrictions on work, like you couldn't get a job in a call center because that's not a real job. You had to get a job that was 9 to 5, which this city, when it comes to that, is far and few. It had to be more than $10 an hour and at least 20 to 40 hours a week. Commission jobs weren't allowed, and you gotta be in before business close. A lot of businesses close, and you get a 2-ride bus pass, so you basically get to go to one place and back. Otherwise, you're walking from here to there, trying to do what the goal is. So there's not a lot of job training, and you have people that pay you low wages to help you out, and you more get taken advantage than actually assisted.
Entities being the ones who put the money into building shelters or programs to provide for the homeless?
Well, obviously, I see the need for them to do it because we can't meet the need. So when I see that, it bothers me because the church isn't meeting a need. I see that the government has to do something, but it breaks my heart because I feel like we should be filling that need.
One other thing, you're the only one up here who runs a shelter.
Can you tell us about the logistics of that? That is both how you set it up and what the rules are, that kind of thing.
Yeah, our shelter is real simple. It's an open shelter. There's really no requirement other than you can't be violent and causing trouble. That's about it. You can be been doing drugs or been drinking or whatever, as long as you are not being violent, we'll let you in. So there's really not that's really the only requirement, to be honest with you. If you'll be cool and you won't start trouble, we'll give you a bed. The only issue we have is space. We don't they don't need IDs to get in. In a lot of the shelters, they need IDs to get in, or they need TB tests or those kinds of things. We don't do that, but we're a temporary shelter, meaning the city won't let us go year round. We can only go for a few months, and then we've got to shut down to be in compliance with the law. Come and volunteered, or if you've come to eat, you've heard that statement. We say it over and over and over again. We serve with no strings attached, and we receive the support that we receive from people and organizations. We're trusted in the community, really because we've chosen as a church to just drop our religious pretenses and serve people. And I'm amazed at the support we've received. I'm amazed at the organizations that get involved. I'm amazed at the other faith organizations that get involved, when really on the surface we don't have a lot in common. What we have in common is we want to help people and we want to be compassionate.
Our problem is, what do you do? How do we work within the neighborhood that we're in, and like you were saying, make this socially acceptable when it's like not in my backyard? Maybe someone says, oh, it's great, you provide food and showers for the homeless, but don't do it down the street from my house. You know, so I think there's a struggle. If you have any suggestions on how to work with those around you when you're trying to provide these services.
I'll address that real quick if I can. We faced that when we first started. Our church was located right across the street from Epic Cafe on 4th and University, in the White House there on University and Herbert. And our homeless ministry just exploded on Thursday nights, and the neighbors there they all wanted us to help homeless people, but they did not want us to do it there. And the city shut us down, and we unfortunately really had to come to the place where we had to move. We had no choice if we wanted to continue our providing our services. And so it got to the point where we're going to dig in and try to do this, or we're going to just go someplace and continue to provide those services.
Main problem, the elephant in the room, is going to be social integration. It's just like racial integration. In the 50s and 60s, you had this big problem between people of different colors. The United States as a whole had to come together and work that out. And then we had true racial integration. Why I can look at this room and I see a plethora of all different types of racial backgrounds. We need that same thing with our society. We need social integration. We need guys like him, business owners, sitting next to guys like me, homeless guys, who all want the same thing, the system to work properly. And once we get past that barrier, and you can go out of here right now, and you can go out there in front of the library, and you'll see that there's some homeless people right there. And then just think to yourself, when you see them, do you try to scurry away, or do you say, hey, how you doing, blah, 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 and talk to them? It's inside of each person. So these problems that I be bringing up, oh yeah, the government this, the government that. It is the government, but it's you, it's me, it's all of us, because the government, all that is just people. Yep. That's all it is. So if the people in that particular area have unresolved issues with homelessness, with homeless people, then that's going to bleed through in everything they do. It's going to bleed through in their government, it's going to bleed through in their policing, it's going to bleed through when they actually provide services. Those services are going to be subpar, because deep down in the back of their mind, they don't really want to do anything about that. That is a responsibility of every person in this room, including me. We all have to make that decision to do the right thing and not the wrong thing. And if we do that, then it'll slowly chip away at it. It didn't take, it took 20 years. My mother and her generation, they drunk out of black water fountains. 20 years later, I was born in 1978. When I was born, black water fountains did not exist. That generation eradicated that in 20 years. If they can eradicate that, then I think we can eradicate this issue we have with homelessness. I don't think it's impossible.
I was asked to talk a little bit about solutions. I don't have all the solutions. I think it's something that we all have to work together on. But obviously, one of the solutions to homelessness is housing. It has to be affordable housing. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Some people need housing with extensive supports if they're going to succeed. Others succeed with few or no supports. Housing First helps individuals and families get rental housing as quickly as possible without conditions. And that's one of the things that HUD on a national level is really pushing and is one of the best practices.
On the streets, it's known as homeless huts. It's a broad idea of what kind of options that we can offer people. I threw some pictures up on the backboard of some of the work that they're doing in other cities. And it can be anything from a simple parking lot program. There are St. Vincent de Paul's and other cities that allow homeless folks with cars to have a safe place to park their car. They provide porta potties and refuse service. We could do that here. That doesn't really cost hardly anything. We could do the Conestoga hut like they're doing up in Eugene. These structures, and it's one of the biggest ones up back there, it's a wooden base, and it looks like the old Conestoga wagons. Those cost $1,000 to build using mostly new materials. That's a drop in the bucket. I mean, we're paying huge amounts of money for other programs where people cycle in and cycle out. Someone would be very happy in a hut.
Where we could do these kinds of reasonably priced huts or pop-up tents or other different levels of housing within a particular site. What if on that site we were able to provide basic amenities? What if there was a small market there so you could buy the kind of goods that you really need if you're on the street, not the kind of stuff that you find in the supermarket particularly, but things that are more focused on immediate needs. What if there was a way there to work? What if there was a way to produce a product in this place? What if there was a way to do some training? Michelle's shared a couple of different ideas from different communities that have gone down that road a little bit. Thank you, Tim. But it strikes me that at least for a certain percentage of this population, those two things have to go hand in hand. You have to provide really good quality atmosphere, and then you have to provide some way to create a product and to create jobs and to create upward movement.
What about artists and architects combining forces on quick mobile shelter solutions? Let's ask the city to lead the way in making $10.10 the new minimum wage here. Do we have a right to public places? Are there any true free places left? Free public places left? What is private property? What about the issues of land tenure? What about social isolation? In my mind, imagine that if we were to imagine that people who are homeless in our community, that we welcome them with a hug, a shower, a hot meal, new socks and shoes, maybe even washing their feet, a warm smile and a place to set up camp, seek services, make some friends, and abide by a code of nonviolence. I think it's possible, and I look forward to working with my community on this solution.
I grew up on the streets of Chicago. I was poor, and I ended up in the foster care system. When I got too old, I ended up on the street, so I was homeless for a while. While going to college, I managed to finish school, and I got an art degree, and I'm still poor, and I'm still struggling. I'm always on the verge of homelessness. And I rode my bike to Chicago last year, and I met my partner, and she built a tiny house, and we decided we were gonna try and live in her house, and we have for the last almost 4 months. But because it's unconventional housing, we could not find a place to park. We can't. You can't. We can't find anywhere to park. So then we decided to go the conventional way and get an apartment. But neither one of us has a job. I can't get a job because I'm deaf. I applied for disability, and that's 2 months ago. I'm not asking for a handout, I'm just asking for her to be allowed to exist, to have access to clean water and a bathroom and a shower and a place to sleep and a place to make my art and a place to go sell it if we want. We were up on 4th Avenue this morning trying to sell our work because we don't have any other way to make money right now. And of course, we were kicked off the sidewalk and weren't allowed to sell our stuff. And so I want to know how we can do that, how we can live in the house that she built and have a place to park. I want to have my own place, but I don't want to keep paying $600, and I also don't want to work for $7 an hour.
People have a right to use the bathroom, so let's force our government to make some sort of fashion for these people to have access to bathroom services. There's plenty of buildings that are owned by our government that can be opened up for that purpose. Water fountains. You got parks in the city of Tucson that don't have no water fountains, and when you look at the city, because I've actually studied this, I'm pretty sure Mr. Steller's going to look at this after I say it, is the downtown area, all the parks that are in the key core area of downtown, they don't have water fountains outside. Armory Park does, but one is broken and the other one it barely works, and they ain't came to fix it in 10 years. It's been broken like that for 10 years. So it's clear, at least to me, that the government of the city of Tucson has a policy or custom of discriminating against homeless people and attempting to move them out of the jurisdiction. And that's going to violate the right to travel. It's going to violate equal protection. It's going to violate due process. Matter of fact, they just punished a bunch of people. Well, they attempted to punish a bunch of people for being on the sidewalk right there in front of Benedesco Park. And the law says they can be there. The law says clearly that they're allowed to be on the sidewalk, okay? But yet the government still attempted to shoo these people away because they wanted to make it more lucrative for their gym show or whatever it is.
About mortgage. Mort is death. And people are just surviving just to pay for their death in a way, under a house. And so how can we create a society that isn't about surviving just to pay for their home? That's number one. Just to think on a larger scale, like the implications of that.
For instance, loss of public spaces that were really beneficial to community outreach, to community building, specifically a lot with juvenile task force. We lost Scrappies. That was a huge loss for the community that just happened this past year, when that was really being used to provide a safe space for homeless youth, for youth that were caught up in the juvenile justice system. Even just this past summer, we were having when the space was still open public space, but then just this past fall, you have a group that comes in, they have $10,000 they can present to the owners of the building. There you go, we lost that space because again, we live in a society that inherently is choosing profits over people.
The city is facing $32 million in deficits next year, and something like perhaps as much as $200 million over the next 5 years. If you do not grow the economic pie in a city that has basically no real industry in it, if you do not find a way to do that, you can't help anybody. It's a very, very simple equation.
I thought this was going to be a bunch of crap, a bunch of bull. You guys really opened my eyes, man. And I mean that. And continue. Please, continue. Thank you.
My name is Neutopia, and I have a few words to say about the forum. First, our government needs to recognize that housing is a human right. Consequently, everyone deserves housing, whether they work or not. Many people reject this system because of its unjust nature, and we need to recognize that and correct it. There are two parts to the housing crisis. One is that we need emergency shelter now. This can be in the form of mini geodesic domes or huts that were described at this forum, or other temporary shelter. The second point is that we need arcology. Arcology is ecological architecture that would in fact use social integration in all fields of study to build this magnanimous structure. I see it being built on Arizona State Trust land. It would be a national project that would experiment with living collectively in a way that we can only imagine now with our technology. We are stuck in 20th century cities that will never create a class-free society. And to get rid of this injustice, we have to build a new democratic city that is designed to create social justice. It's a great task ahead of us, but if we only think of the housing crisis as being a temporary shelter, then we don't understand the whole nature of the crisis, which we have billions of people on the planet living in an unsustainable manner. It's time to demand that we create an experiment to solve the housing crisis.